Welcome to the Nation of History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. The Santa Fe Springs Field became one of the most productive in the world during the 1920s. The event in 1928 highlights the extreme pressure of California's underground reserves, where natural gas burst out with such force that the flares appeared bright and clean, without soot. An unusual technological solution was developed for traffic officers in the United States in 1932. It was an electrically heated vest, powered by contacts installed directly in the street pavement. The system was meant to fight intense cold during the job. Neurosurgeon Harvey Cushing carefully documented his patient's recovery after surgery in the early 20th century. Through clinical photographs, he recorded the marks and results of pioneering neurological procedures, establishing foundational methods that helped advance modern neuroscience and the treatment of complex conditions involving the human skull. During the Commonwealth Trans-Antarctic Expedition, carried out from 1955 to 1958, a snowcat vehicle was photographed crossing an ice crevasse with extreme care. The delicate passage highlights the logistical complexity explorers faced. The massive ocean liner Titanic begins its maiden voyage, departing from Southampton on April 10, 1912. On the dock, onlookers watch the steel giant leave, a symbol of peak shipbuilding engineering of the era. Smoke from the funnels marks the start of a historic crossing of the North Atlantic. Two girls race sheep at high speed across fields in Cornwall, England, in 1969. The scene captures an unusual moment of fun in the British countryside, where children's freedom and direct contact with animals shaped rural entertainment in past decades. Walt Disney presented an unusual project to the armed forces during the Second World War aimed at reducing childhood fear. It was a protective face mask with Mickey Mouse's face, meant to be used in air operations. The playful design turned a piece of defense gear into something familiar. A man dressed as the Easter Bunny visits a bedridden patient in a United States hospital in 1951. Efforts like this aim to make the hospital environment feel more human and bring emotional comfort to patients on holidays. The image reflects post-war middle-class social customs. On a ship's deck in 1958, Diana Dors poses while a row of photographers leans over the rail searching for the best angle. The contrast between her calm and the bustle around her shows how fame was captured live, with no filter. It is a moment that sums up 1950s pop culture and the era's shared curiosity. The Mobot, short for Mobile Robot, was an innovative creation from Hughes Aircraft Electronic Labs presented in California in 1961. Photographed by Life magazine, the automaton displayed mechanical arms that could help a woman get dressed, reflecting the era's technological optimism. In 1967, during filming of the series starring Adam West, the Caped Crusader was photographed in an unusual moment, riding on an elephant. The scene, made as promotional material, captures the light and playful humor that defined the production and took the hero beyond the streets of Gotham. Venus was a bulldog who played an important symbolic role as the official mascot of His Majesty's ship Van Sittert, a British Royal Navy destroyer during wartime. Wearing a small naval cap, the dog helped keep crew morale high amid the challenges of missions at sea. During preparations for the Normandy operation, the United States Army used specialized units known as the Ghost Army. Soldiers placed inflatable rubber tanks in England to fool enemy aerial reconnaissance and simulate a military force that did not exist. Followers of the Church of God with Signs following take part in a snake handling ritual during the 1960s. Based on a literal reading of biblical passages, the practice involved handling these animals and exposure to dangerous substances as a test of faith and divine protection. Boxer Muhammad Ali delivered one of the most emotional moments in Olympic history on July 19, 1996. Even while facing advanced Parkinson's symptoms, he lifted the torch to light the cauldron in Atlanta. The act became a symbol of human perseverance and resilience in the face of global challenges. Muhammad Ali won the gold medal at the Rome Olympics in 1960, cementing his name in world boxing history. On the podium, the young athlete showed the determination that would make him a global icon, symbolizing not only athletic excellence, but also the beginning of a life of social impact. Two German soldiers operate a Zundap motorcycle in a wooded area during the Second World War. These vehicles were vital for troop mobility across European terrain and were widely used for reconnaissance and fast communication between units spread along operational lines. Soviet servicemen pose in front of the Reichstag columns after the fall of Berlin in 1945. At the center stands Sergei Aleshkov, believed to be the youngest person to serve in the Red Army, symbolizing the total effort mobilized during the fighting on the Eastern Front. A powerful heavy artillery piece fires at night in France in 1918, lighting up the combat zone during the First World War. The large-scale use of these rail-mounted guns was crucial to long-range bombardment strategies, shaping the technical intensity of the war's final fighting. A towering railroad structure in Wyoming pushed the limits of engineering in the 19th century. Known as the Dale Creek Bridge, it was so unstable that locomotives had to slow drastically to only 4 miles per hour to ensure a safe crossing over the valley. The stairways of the Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza appear covered with vegetation and sediment before major archaeological restorations in Mexico. The Maya pyramid reveals the base of a feathered serpent alongside the stone steps. This rediscovery phase allowed detailed mapping of the site's astronomical precision. The ruins of the Temple of Bacchus in Baalbek, Lebanon, were photographed between 1870 and 1880, highlighting the grandeur of ancient Roman architecture. Carved details on the stone doorway endured for centuries, drawing explorers and archaeologists eager to document classical heritage in the Middle East. Edward Evans watches the occultation of Jupiter on June 8, 1911, during the historic Terra Nova expedition in Antarctica. Sheltered by supply crates on the ice, he uses astronomical instruments to collect vital scientific data, facing extreme isolation in pursuit of knowledge. Smiling children with a dog stand in the middle of a residential street in London around 1955. The setting shows typical post-war row houses, reflecting simple community life and how young people used public space in England. The Sikorsky R-5 service helicopter conducts record tests in Bridgeport, Connecticut on January 10, 1946. The aircraft shows its lifting capacity by carrying the pilot and 17 passengers, while women watch the progress of aviation engineering in the post-war period. British troops in India use a creative camouflage tactic by disguising military vehicles as elephants during the Second World War. This visual trick aimed to fool enemy aerial reconnaissance, turning columns of heavy vehicles and trucks into harmless native animals. Gas stations with futuristic designs inspired by flying saucers became popular during the space race. These circular metal structures reflected the era's technological optimism, drawing drivers in with a science fiction look that promised a tomorrow shaped by space exploration. Innovation and practicality went hand in hand in the mid-20th century auto industry. In 1950, a driver showed off a coffee maker installed directly on his vehicle's dashboard, allowing coffee to be brewed during the drive. The accessory was meant to add comfort on long trips. A child entertainment innovation appeared in the United States in 1921. It was a baby stroller fitted with a full radio, including a large antenna and an external speaker. The goal was to keep the child entertained while the parents rested. In 1964, Toshiba developed an innovative device called the ViewPhone that allowed calls with live video in real time. This sturdy machine is considered a direct forerunner of modern video calling, combining sound and image in a communication system that was advanced for its time. Spain introduced a curious technological creation to the world in 1953 called the El Chispas robot. With a cylindrical metal body and side antennas, the humanoid was often shown at events to demonstrate engineering progress and the promises of automation that shaped the era's scientific imagination. Robotic prototypes fascinated the public in the late 1950s with the promise of an automated future. Cosmos, a robot built in 1958, featured a metallic design packed with antennas and circular components. The machine symbolizes the futuristic look and the technology race of that era. The Tinker robot appeared as a technological curiosity in England in the 1960s. Built by a self-taught inventor, the mechanical humanoid could perform simple tasks, such as typing on typewriters. Its metal frame and dome-shaped head capture the decade's futuristic imagination. Workers known as river drivers were photographed in 1951 using hand tools at Carrick pitch. The crew worked with precision to break up a log jam that blocked the water flow, making sure the timber could move downriver for processing. Beachgoers in the Netherlands were photographed in 1961 using a peculiar accessory to maximize sun exposure. A foldable reflector placed right under the chin focused sunlight onto the face and neck, showing the decade's habits and the pursuit of the perfect tan. Portable seats known as monopods were a curious design solution introduced in the 1950s. The device let pedestrians take quick rest breaks in public places without needing fixed benches, blending practicality with the urban look of the period. A portable, extendable bridge was developed in the Netherlands by L. Death in 1926 to make emergency movement easier. The accordion-style metal structure could be carried in a wheelbarrow, allowing quick crossings over small canals or unstable ground across the country. A photograph taken in 1882 shows a new tricycle designed by Oldrave, captured through the lens of Chas. W. Oldrave. The vehicle features a massive front wheel contrasted with smaller rear wheels, highlighting design experiments in the Victorian era. An Austrian motorcyclist poses beside his Puch motorcycle in a rural area in 1951. The bike has typical accessories of the time, like canvas saddlebags and a tall windshield, showing the practical post-war design that allowed longer, more comfortable trips on Central Europe's roads. A man riding a moose passes through a quiet snow-covered town around 1910, creating an unusual scene that defies the era's conventional transportation. In the background, brick buildings and utility poles hint at the growth of modern city infrastructure. Balanced on a tightrope at the Brockton Fair in Massachusetts, Gertrude Dewar, known on stage as Mademoiselle Omega, shows her circus skill in 1908. She represented peak popular entertainment of the time, drawing crowds to watch physical feats. Displayed vertically at the Milan Triennial, the Citroën DS19 reshaped automotive design with sleek, futuristic lines. The event took place in 1957, presenting French engineering as industrial art that would influence transportation style for decades. Visitors walk across a thick layer of ice formed at Niagara Falls in 1885, taking advantage of a rare natural event that partly froze the falls. The winter scene turned the border landscape between the United States and Canada into a one-of-a-kind tourist attraction in the 19th century. New York's subway system during the 1980s was often described as one of the most troubled in the world. Train cars covered in thick layers of graffiti carried riders through an atmosphere of constant unease, reflecting the urban crisis and tension gripping the American metropolis. Customers crowd the counter at the Buku Diner in Harlingen, Texas, where hamburgers sold for only 5 cents. The rustic sign and soda ads create the look of classic American roadside stops, serving as a social gathering place in an era of low prices and growing towns. The real-life models for Grant Wood's iconic painting American Gothic pose beside the original artwork. Nan Wood Graham and dentist Byron McKeeby served as the basis for the figures that became symbols of rural life in the United States. The painting was first shown in Chicago in 1930. A rare childhood photo shows young Elvis Presley beside his mother Gladys during the 1930s in Mississippi. Their strong emotional bond shaped the future performer's path amid the hardships of the Great Depression. That family background was essential to the development of his music career. Young Freddie Mercury proudly poses with a trophy at St. Peter's Boys' School in Panchgani in 1958. Located in India, the British Style School is where the future star began his music studies and formed his first band. That school period played a major role in his development. Queen Mary holds the future monarch Elizabeth II in her arms in 1926, capturing a generational bond within the British royal family. The portrait reflects the House of Windsor line during the interwar period and the continuity of European monarchy in a century of sweeping change. A woman hugs and kisses a British serviceman as he steps off a train after the end of the Second World War. The emotional reunion on a station platform symbolizes the return of thousands of service members home, marking the start of a new phase of family and social rebuilding in post-war Europe. A First World War veteran who lost his sight during the conflict celebrates his wedding in 1921. Wearing his military uniform and medals, he symbolizes the resilience of a generation that had to rebuild personal and social life after the deep scars of Europe's battlefields. Freddie McIntosh appears wearing special protective gear on June 3, 1953, to deal with a rare sensitivity to sunlight. The improvised outfit fully covered his face and body, allowing the 8-year-old boy to go outside safely during the day. Patients at the Sint Willibrordus Health Institution in the Netherlands do supervised physical activities on February 14, 1956. Photographer Henk Blansjaar captured the facility's therapeutic daily life, where structured exercise was used as part of the treatment routine of the time. 3 patients undergo a steam box procedure at Milledgeville State Hospital in Georgia in 1908. The method was common in health institutions of that era as a form of heat therapy, highlighting early 20th century medical practices of care and control. A mobile library from the New York Public Library serves a crowd of children and adults on the streets of the Bronx in 1950. The modified bus with outside shelves made reading easier to access in outlying neighborhoods, promoting broader education and culture during post-war America. Linotype machines were in full operation at the Anthony Hordern & Sons department store around 1935. Run by trained staff, these complex mechanical systems revolutionized typesetting, allowing printed materials to be produced quickly, right on site. During the 1950s, a curious trend swept across many university campuses around the world. The challenge was to fit as many young people as possible inside a phone booth. The practice reflects the era's playful, rebellious spirit and its chase for oddball records. West 23rd Street in New York buzzes with pedestrians and horse-drawn carriages around 1905, revealing grand architecture and lively commerce. Stores like Best & Company mark the cityscape of an era defined by a fast shift into modern life. Heavy traffic of carriages and horse buses fills King's Cross in London on July 20, 1899, showing the central role of the Great Northern Railway Station in city logistics. Posters and wooden structures shape the scene of an imperial capital in the midst of industrial and social expansion. An aerial view of Times Square in 1927 reveals New York's frantic pulse during the Roaring Twenties. Electric streetcars and early automobiles share the streets between monumental buildings covered in famous brand signs. The urban rush shows the city's vertical and economic growth. A view of the Brooklyn Bridge in 1948 shows New York's dense urban landscape as seen toward Manhattan. The suspended metal structure over the East River kept a steady flow between boroughs. Below the Gothic towers, cargo vessels moved through to support the port economy. The imposing facade of the New York Stock Exchange shows its neoclassical columns in full operation in 1908. Located in the financial heart of Wall Street, the building reinforced American economic power in the early 20th century and served as a nerve center of global capitalism. An aerial view of New York photographed in 1939 reveals a striking social pattern of the time. Nearly every pedestrian on the busy streets wore a hat, an essential accessory for men and women then, reinforcing the etiquette and fashion rules that shaped city life. Vibrant New York in 1920 shows the nerve of an officer hanging above Times Square. The Macy's sign in the background helps pinpoint the intersection of Broadway and 7th Avenue. This kind of physical strength display was common to promote the toughness of authorities in a city rising upward. Two college students relax in a dorm room at the University of Illinois in 1910. Wallpaper covered with photos and small framed pictures reveals student culture at the time, while classic furniture and formal clothing show everyday academic life in the early 20th century. Two women show off stylish polka-dot beach pajamas in Deauville during the 1930s. This French outfit represented a revolution in women's fashion, combining comfort and sophistication by the sea. The resort town was a favorite destination for Europe's elite in search of leisure and new style trends. A young flapper shows off her large collection of boudoir dolls in France in 1924. These decorative items were a craze among modern women and symbolized the sophistication of post-war European elites. Flapper fashion reshaped women's behavior and the look of the entire decade. A graduation ceremony in the late 1890s shows the strict social codes and fashion of the late Victorian era in the United States. Young women wear long, formal dresses with lace, symbolizing growing access to higher education as they prepare to enter the workforce. Seen through Martha Perkins's calm gaze in 1901, the photograph reveals Edwardian elegance with a high-collar dress and a decorated hat. Captured in the early 20th century, the image highlights the refinement of a class seeking social standing through style and dignified presence. A rustic-looking young woman poses for a portrait holding a chicken around 1900. Showing the contrast between rural life and the formal style of photography at the time. The image captures the simple, everyday world of country life in the early 20th century, preserving the cultural identity of local communities. Two women pose wearing crow masks in a period photo studio. Animal props were common in themed parties and stage shows in the early 20th century, evoking mysterious symbolism. The look of the image reflects society's fascination with the exotic. A long-haired girl combs her hair in front of a small wall mirror in the 1920s. Side lighting casts a sharp shadow, creating a simple, homey mood typical of the early 20th century. The image captures an everyday moment of personal care in a minimalist setting. A large family poses in front of their modest log cabin in West Virginia around 1900. The image captures American rural life at the turn of the century, showing rustic wooden housing and a day-to-day subsistence routine in a region shaped by isolation and farm work. A large family faces harsh living conditions in London, tenements during the 1900s. The black and white image captures the plain clothing and stern expressions of children and adults, reflecting extreme inequality and the lack of basic infrastructure in the poorest areas of the British capital in the Victorian era. A Somali man shows striking physical features in a photograph taken in 1943. The turban and military uniform suggest possible service in colonial or security forces in East Africa. That period was marked by intense geopolitical shifts in the Horn of Africa. A street in Vicksburg, Mississippi shows Moorish-style arches in 1936. The image includes cars of the era parked along the road, capturing daily life in a Southern American city, trying to modernize amid the challenges of the Great Depression. A model wearing a Jacques Fath outfit poses elegantly beside a Delahaye automobile in Paris on September 15, 1947. In the background, the Eiffel Tower appears through the haze, completing the French post-war look. The car's streamlined design reflects the luxury and sophistication of that decade's auto industry. Australian swimmer Murray Rose signs autographs for enthusiastic fans during the Melbourne Summer Olympics in 1956. A sports icon and multiple gold medal winner, he embodied Australia's swimming success at those games and became one of the most celebrated figures there. Ethiopian marathon runner Abebe Bikila delivered one of the most memorable moments in world sports by running barefoot through the streets of Rome during the 1960 Olympics. By winning the race and taking the gold medal, he not only set a new record, but also symbolized the strength of the African continent. Athletes line up for the start of the 100-meter dash during the first modern Olympic Games, held in Athens in 1896. The event marked the revival of an ancient sporting tradition, bringing competitors from multiple nations into the Panathenaic Stadium to launch the modern Olympic timeline. The medals from the St. Louis Olympics, held in 1904, feature detailed designs that blend athletic tradition with the World's Fair. The front shows a victorious athlete, while the back highlights the 800-meter race, reflecting the neoclassical style of early 20th century competitions. During the Paris World's Fair in 1900, the medals awarded to athletes had a rectangular shape unique in Olympic history. Designed by Frederick Vernon, the bronze pieces show the goddess Nike and a victorious athlete, symbolizing the union of classical art and modern sport. The idea of shared housing for athletes came to life in Colombes during the Paris Games. Small wooden cabins formed a pioneering setup that provided basic services and meals to competitors. This arrangement marked a transition toward the modern model of global sports hospitality. A child uses a complex anthropometric measuring device designed to track body proportions over time. The apparatus reflects the era's scientific interest in biometrics and physical development, using gears and precise scales to record detailed changes in body measurements for patients or athletes. During a masquerade ball held at Covent Garden in April 1894, a man won first place in a costume contest by dressing as a slice of bacon. The eccentric creativity earned him a prize of 40 guineas for the originality he showed. The Gothic towers of the Neue Elbbrücke Bridge in Hamburg rise impressively in this photo taken before 1959. Originally opened in 1887, the German structure blended iron engineering with monumental architecture until roadway expansion needs led to the removal of its historic features. South African, Australian, and British teams take part in hands-on training at the Western Desert Cookery School in Egypt in 1941. The group watches closely as food is prepared on makeshift stoves set in the sand. This logistical training was vital for troop survival during desert operations. During the invasion of the Soviet Union in July 1941, the advance of German forces led to the capture of thousands of fighters in the Neville region. Among those held, Soviet women involved in the war effort faced the uncertainty of imprisonment, showing the total scale of the conflict on the Eastern Front. A smiling young man shows off a bold zoot suit in a tailor shop in 1940. This exaggerated style with high-waisted pants and long coats became a symbol of cultural resistance and identity for urban minorities in the United States. The fashion pushed back against wartime fabric rationing. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.